Speaking to Inform manual. Speech number 4, a fact-finding report. The purpose of the speech is to prepare a report on a situation, event, or problem of interest to the audience. Now, she's going to deliver sufficient factual information in her report so that the audience can base valid conclusions or a sound decision on it. The information, which is going to be comprehensive and well organized, as well as presented in an interesting manner. The talk will include the overview of the report, an explanation of how the data was gathered, and through presentation of relevant facts. This speech will be 10 to 12 minutes. It's called Too Hot to Handle, and it's going to be evaluated by Larry Hill. Would you please put your hands together for Mary Ann, DTM.
Fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests, have you ever stuck your foot in your mouth, said something you wished you hadn't said? Unfortunately, I've done that many times. How about you? But let me give you an example of one time. I was in a mall, and I ran into a friend of mine who I'd known for a long time. She had just given birth to her first child. She was a proud mama pushing that buggy. I peered in real quickly, and then I said, "Oh, what is it, a boy or a girl?" She rolled her eyes and pointed in the buggy. Well, this time I looked more carefully. The little girl was dressed from head to toe in bright pink. Oops. But there are many other times that I've managed to stick my foot in my mouth and wished I hadn't said what I had said. But there was one incident that I continued to repeat the story over and over a number of years. And that was the incident about the woman who had sued McDonald's because the coffee was too hot. I remember saying things like, "I can't believe someone would sue a company like McDonald's because their coffee's too hot. I mean, isn't coffee supposed to be hot? When was the last time you went to a restaurant and you said, 'Please, could I have a cup of lukewarm coffee?' Of course not. We want our coffee hot." Now, I'm not the only one. There were many comedians that hopped on this bandwagon and used that material to make fun of the situation. And there's been a song written called "The American Ride" by Toby Keith, and the verses go, "Spill a cup of coffee, get $1 million." I even went a little further than that, and I began to say such things as I couldn't believe our judicial system for allowing that to happen, because it appeared that that opened a door for other people to sue at the drop of a coin. The last time I spewed my brilliance, a friend of mine said to me, "Mary Ann, have you ever read the account of that story?" I hung my head in shame, because no, other than the information that I'd gotten on the news and other places, I knew nothing about the actual facts. So a few days later, I Googled "woman who sued McDonald's." I was surprised to see how much information was there. And as I began to pore over the material, I was quite shocked at what I saw. The woman who sued McDonald's name was Stella Liebeck. She was a 79-year-old woman, very feisty and active. In fact, just days before this incident, she had dug up a tree and transplanted it in another area in her yard. She and her grandson were out for a ride. They got hungry, so they pulled into the drive-thru, picked up the things they ordered, and then the grandson, who happened to be driving the car, pulled into the first parking place, turned off the ignition, and then they began to pass out the food with each other. He handed his grandmother the cup of coffee. Now, this was a time before cars had cup holders. So where do you think she put that cup?
In her lap.
Her lap. Is there anybody in this room who has never put a beverage in your lap somewhere? You've never done that? Good girl.
No, clumsy.
Yeah. Very good girl. So she put this cup in her lap, and she began to lift the lid, at which time the cup collapsed in her lap, pouring scalding hot water on the inside of her legs, her groin, and her private parts. Can you imagine the excruciating pain? Have you ever touched the rack in the oven when you put something in the oven, or burnt the top of your mouth with a piece of pizza? And that's just one little tiny space. She happened to be wearing sweatpants that day, and the sweatpants actually melted into her skin. The burns were so severe that her bone was exposed in some areas. Sorry to be so graphic, but that's part of the situation that I wished I hadn't been doing what I did. She went to the hospital and was there for 8 days. She had to have skin debriefing, which means taking off the dead skin, which is very excruciatingly painful. They then did skin grafting, which is taking skin from another area of your body and then placing it on the wounded area in hopes that the skin will grow back. And she also had reconstructive surgery done. When she returned after the 8 days, she began to recover, and then the bills began to come in. Well, she was 79, so she was on Medicare, and as most of you probably know, or at least the older ones in the group, that Medicare pays for 80% of your bills, but that 20% adds up very quickly when you're in the hospital for 8 days and all those doctor bills. A few friends and relatives suggested that she write a letter to McDonald's, that surely McDonald's had some type of insurance that might be able to help her out so that she could stay in her house. She wrote the letter when she felt well enough to McDonald's, requesting some assistance. McDonald's wrote back a letter saying they would be more than happy to send her a check for $800 to help cover her medical bills. As you can imagine, that doesn't even touch the surface of what the costs were. She then decided to get a lawyer simply to help get enough money to cover her costs. Her lawyer presented the information to the McDonald's lawyers, of which time they absolutely refused to settle outside of court and decided to take the case to court. Now, the reason why they were very confident about this was because though they had had many other suits put against them, they had never lost one. Well, as you know, there's defense on both sides. And one of the defense on Mrs. Lieback's side was that McDonald's coffee is too hot to handle. Now, if you've ever noticed on a cup of McDonald's coffee, it says, "Caution, I'm hot, handle with care." And the reason why this is on here is because of this suit. Because McDonald's coffee is truly very hot. If you were to make a cup of coffee in your home brewing system this morning, the coffee would be between 120 and 150 degrees. McDonald's holds their coffee at 187 degrees or higher. Now, you know, if you went outside in Cleveland on a 30-degree day versus an 87-degree day, there's a significant difference between the temperature of that one. But how does this affect your skin? If you drink a cup of coffee at 130 degrees, it takes 25 seconds to burn. Now, on the other hand, at 187 degrees, it only takes 2 to 7 seconds to burn your skin off. Now, McDonald's knew about this for 10 years and was asked to lower the temperature of their coffee many times, and they absolutely refused. So you might have a thought in your mind, why would they refuse? The reason why, there's 2 reasons. Number one, they offer coffee refills. But think about it. If you run into the restaurant, get a cup of coffee, and it's too hot to drink, it's going to take you a long time to finish that cup of coffee before you'd be able to get your refill. But the second reason is because their coffee beans are a lower quality. And in order to enhance the flavor of the coffee, they have to set it at least 187 degrees. Now, the defense on McDonald's side was they brought a chart of over 700 people who had been seriously burned with McDonald's coffee. They then proceeded to explain that within a year they sell, or excuse me, within one day they sell 1.3 million cups of coffee. In over 10 years, they only had 700 serious injuries. They felt that was a pretty good percentage, which I guess you could say it is. But the judge and the jury were not too impressed with the insensitivity that McDonald's had for those 700 people and their family members. Because what if that was your grandmother, or maybe your father, or maybe your child? Because some of the 700 were little children as well. In the end, Mrs. Lieback won the suit for $2.6 million, which was 2 days' worth of McDonald's coffee sales. Of course, she never received that much money, but she was able to pay off her bills and keep and stay in her home. She was never quite the same after that incident. So today, my purpose of sharing this is to make sure, if you get a cup of coffee from McDonald's, that you now know that when it says very hot, they mean it's very hot. And it's not just be careful, it's this is really hot. And the other purpose is for myself, so that I will be a little bit more careful the next time I go to respond about something that I don't know about. And if I don't know about it, I'm going to put a lid on it until I do know what I'm talking